Ranch. We're so glad to have you on with us today for a conversation with John Gill. So John, if you can come on and turn on your camera, that would be great. Before we begin, I want to take a minute to explain that John and I will be in conversation for the first portion of the program, and then we'll take questions at the end. So you can type your question in at any time during the talk using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I'll be the only one to see it, so don't worry about everybody seeing it. If you go down to that button at the bottom of your screen, it says Q&A. Type in your question, I will see it. You can type it in at any time during the talk or at the end. And when we get to the question answer portion, I will pose those questions to John when it's time. So don't be shy and ask away. So we'll get started. So John, let's excited to have you with us here today.
Hi.
Hi.
This is great. I love being at Anderson Ranch.
Well, we love having you here in person. You've been here for you've come for so many years, and but it's a good option also to get to see you on the screen. And I know a lot of your fans are out there watching today. So thank you for joining us and being here. And I know you're sitting in front of a really fabulous Christmas tree that you were telling me about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, here, let me go. I'll take you on a ride for the Christmas tree.
All right.
I'm going to flip the thing around.
Great.
Oh, no. How do you flip the phone? Well, anyhow, I'll just do it like this. No, let me flip it.
Or you can sit in front of it like you were. It was a pretty good shot.
Flip. Okay, yeah. Well, all right. I'm going to take you around, and it's
beautiful.
Like, it has like all this stuff, and it's like, and I just, it has Mylar, it has packing chips. It has little birds on it. It's willow tree. So we just got it out of the creek. It's really great. We just, and it's up for the whole season because it's sort of dark here in Alfred. And so this just kind of gives us this really kind of great, whoa. My grandkids thinks it's a ride. We love it. It's really, so we're just really kind of like moving around there. And I have paper mache ornaments. I love these holidays. It's so great. It's
so really great. What a wonderful tree. I love it. Well, yeah. Esther, we're going to bring up some images now and talk a little bit about John's work. We're going to dig in. So, John, we have many artists watching today, and it's really wonderful. I see that we have about 100 people watching, and as artists, we love to dig into the thought process and the fluidity behind making art. So as a painter myself, I'm stunned by the way that you create these structures and apply glazes. So your aesthetic seems to lend itself to painting. Can you talk about the ways in which you think about glazing? And could you tell us what painters have influenced you? Let's start there.
Well, let's see, the painters that I've been influenced by, lots of painters. I've worked with a lot of really great artists that have been painters, and I've worked with really great graphic designers. So all that stuff comes together. But one of the things that was really kind of important was my first job at RISD. Roland Bellhumor said that when you do a painting, you put together a form-structure relationship. So, but when you do sculpture, you put together a form-structure relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I don't think about what color goes on until after the bisque is out.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So and then at that time there, it's totally new. So it's like this brand new canvas, and you know, it's funny what you learn at the ranch. It's like, I remember telling somebody says, when I glaze my pots, it's a little bit like, like a bikini. You want to show off certain parts and you want to hide other parts.
Right.
And so So there was this lovely lady up on Red Mountain who said, that's why I buy 14 new swimsuits every year, because I don't want to get the same tan lines. And you understand what you have, and then how do you want to share that?
Yeah.
Yeah, or how do you want to like hide or reveal?
Ah,
So it's a lot about that type of thing. The pot
yeah.
that's on the left is in the uh, the pot on the left is going to go to the Met.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
We were
right.
talking about that
We'll
show.
talk about that later on. Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, and when we were talking earlier, you were saying that artists like Milton Avery, you had some interesting
Well,
painters that you were saying were really exciting to you and that had really
well,
influenced you.
when I first got started, I went. I was at a great gallery in New York City called Hadler Rodriguez, and I was there for a couple of years. And then a friend of mine, David Saunders, said, "Why don't we go over and see Grace Borganick?" And Grace Borganick had Stuart Davis, Milton Avery, Max Beckman, all these really great painters. And so there was a let's see, there was a Stella piece there, not Frank, but the dad,
Oh,
Joseph.
yeah.
And I had a pot that was sitting there, and it looked, the lady who was working with Grace said, wait a minute, I have that painting in the backyard, in the back room. So there was a Joseph Stella that was just like one of the pots that I was like, that I had there. And I didn't know it was going to be like that. And
Yeah.
then they put my pots up there, and they'd say, oh yeah, there was a Milton Avery on the wall. And there was this relationship between the pots that were just like jumping right off. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So they said, well, we've we've only had one potter at this gallery ever. It was Rosanjan back in very first thing, and he sold in this gallery, and he couldn't even collect the money from it. So he basically just handed out pieces all over New York to collectors. It was really kind of strange. But Rosanjan's such a great painter in a pot. So I said, wow, if it's good enough for Rosanjan, I think I could do it. And so so I said, yes, I do it. And I was there for a long time, and she was such a wonderful person. And so after that, she got me into a different gallery. She took me downstairs and put me into Crosshour Gallery, which is an old American gallery that's probably about 135 years old now. So it's like they go from Glacken's, Sloan, all those earlier pieces. So I was there for a while. That's nice. So yeah.
Cool. Well, so you definitely seamlessly meld abstraction with function in a very playful and colorful way. I'm sure you've had people describe your work as playful a lot. And ceramics is so dependent on structure and balance and construction. We're requiring a lot of forethought. And I'm wondering how you plan your work. I think a lot of artists, I'm sure, want to ask that and they're interested. So are you as spontaneous as the results? Your results look so fresh and lively and spontaneous. And when you're thinking about the structure beforehand, do you move into glaze? You've kind of answered this already about that you think about glaze once it's come out of the kiln, but can you talk a little bit about your planning process?
Well, I think my planning process would be just, I got a great system. It's based on probably tin construction, like ductwork. You can fold and unfold things, or it's based on brick and mortar, where you kind of like put together a slab, or I have, or if I need to do coil, I can work any way I want to work. But all these pieces are slab construction, and it was just a wonderful way of just trying to figure out what the girth is, trying to deal with dressmaking, pattern making, how to like kind of like tailor something.
Yeah.
And the tailoring is what's kind of, but what's really great is when you have that thing. It's like, you know, you want to get a piece of clothing made for you. It's like you have to have the body first before you can ever put the clothing on it. There
Right.
was a wonderful uh, let's see, let's see, Norman Rockwell had a teacher at Art Student League, and he says, "You can't paint the house until you build it first."
Interesting. I like that.
And it was to say how to really deal with the figure, how to really deal with, did you build this figure first before you painted it? And so like you have somebody like an Edward Hopper who just nails it, where it's like he's over structuring the cigarette is this perfect tube that goes through there. Or you have Giacometti who's really trying to like ask all this, what is the structure that I'm trying to like put together? It's like, so all that stuff goes together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, yeah, the structure is so beautiful. And like I said, there's this, it looks so spontaneous. So I think that's interesting. And I wonder too, if do you ever draw? Is drawing part of your practice, or is that something that you've left behind? Or is that something that you do on a regular basis?
I draw when I have to go to the ER room
Yeah, it's a good.
because you have to stay focused on things. Or I draw in faculty meetings when you have to stay focused on things. I Yeah, when I have to wait for something, I draw. But in the making process, I don't draw
Okay. All right.
because there's so much. I work on a whole bunch of pieces at the same time, and then an idea might jump to another one.
Uh-huh. Oh,
And but I have like, and I might make right now. I have, I think I have about 20 ewers that were all made at the same time,
wow.
so that the ideas jump from one to another.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
um, that's Tyler. He filmed the whole thing. It was really kind of great. Just the making process for 20 ewers. You could do that when you have Tyler, our Carbondale Tyler, who's such a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he basically filmed the whole thing. And he's going to edit it and put it all together. It's going to be really nice.
Oh, that's really
So,
cool. Yeah.
but that's just making the object. It's not glazing it.
Right.
Then
So then,
glazing it, what you do is you basically are trying to figure out how to deal with the form as if it's an endless painting.
oh wow. Yeah.
When did you paint the back of your canvas?
Yeah, I've never actually done that. That's an interesting, yeah, exactly.
Or when were you given a sphere to paint?
Right.
Or a cube, or
Mhm.
just any object, and then like deal with it as if it's an endless painting.
Right. No,
And
that's
so,
an interesting way to think about it. And so then do you have like a line of these objects that you're working on all at once, like these 20 objects when you're painting and when you're glazing?
no, every one of them is a little bit different. They're
Yeah.
all different. I mean, if I wasn't in here with the Christmas tree, I'd be out in the studio, but the furnace goes on and off and it's too loud. So
Yeah.
it would be hard for the sound thing.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. The sound would be hard, but that's interesting. And like a lot of artists, I think, work on a single object at once. Like they can't really focus on more than one thing at a time. And it sounds like you're really, I mean, no matter what the medium, there are artists who love to work on 20 paintings or 20, different
Yeah.
objects at one time. And that sounds like that's your process. That's really interesting.
Well, the nice thing I have like dyslexia,
Hmm.
and one of the things that's really great about dyslexia is my ideas hit just all at the same time, and then they just kind of like, then I have to filter them all out. But when you have 100 ideas, of possibilities, when you have the whole history of ceramics, the whole history of painting, the whole history of tin construction, and all of a sudden it's like it's eager just to jump out there and make something happen,
Yep.
then it might as well just work on all of it instead of just sitting down and executing one piece.
Yeah.
Execution is a serious act of violence. And I don't believe in execution.
Yeah.
And so I believe in this open flow that's just so, and my cell phone has all these icons that just show up right at the very beginning. It's like, well, they're all pictures.
Yeah.
And it's like, and out of those pictures, you can kind of just recalibrate things.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. So like a lot of people are linear thinkers, and it sounds like you're you're a non-linear thinker in the way that you put your ideas together.
Yeah.
So you're also a beloved teacher at the ranch, and your class is already full for the summer. We've got a huge waiting list. People love working with you, and I feel like at the ranch it's such a wonderful setting for you. And you've returned so many times to share your knowledge and your ideas. And I'm wondering if you ever get ideas from your students. And I'm also wondering how your teaching practice sort of corresponds with your studio practice, and if it's part of that or if it feeds off of that.
Well, I've had some really great students there. One of my students was Sarah Ransford, and she was in the class, and I said, well, maybe what if you just came out and make a body of work with us at Alfred? So she came out to Alfred, and then I said, let's go back to the ranch and let's make a body of work as a visiting artist. So I just went back there. We went up to the grottos and we sat down and we made she has both of the pieces at her house. And they're these really great wood fire pieces that were where we did the drawing of the landscape and then try to figure out how to translate it all into sculpture.
Wow.
And I was just sitting there we're doing the drawings, and then we went back, took the drawings, and then we built these really great pieces. Sarah and I worked really hard, and she said, no, I'm here to, no, you're here to make one. I'm here to make one. You're not here to work with me. We're here to work together as two artists. And she's gone on to be, really, trying to, she's really keeping her work up. And she also teaches at the ranch.
Oh yeah.
The other person was the person who basically told me about the swimsuits, and how having 14 new swimsuits every year. That was such a great idea. And then what I learned at the ranch was how light works on form. And before they built the low-income housing thing, you could see all the way down the valley and across the valley, and there was across the highway, and there was a hill across there that was really amazing. Well, when the clouds came over the top of it, they would light the thing in a certain way. Like plein air painters would know about this stuff. But for me, it was this really kind of amazing thing. That basically jumped in as my glazing process.
Wow.
Having the cloud be that thing that drew on that form. Yeah. And having the cloud be, here's this new shape that you never ever could pay attention to. And so that was really great. And the other thing that's really great about Colorado is the color that it has. Mm-hmm. And just what it can do with sky. Yeah. And so there's so much there. That's why it's so great to be out there.
So does where you're located seem to impact the way you make your work in the way that it does for most artists? But do you find that it affects your pieces and the color and the structure? And
my piece, the landscape we have here is an uplifted plateau that made Niagara Falls. Yeah. And so, and the whole top of it was flat and then was eroded into these wonderful soft hills. And where I live, we have rivers that go to the Chesapeake, to the St. Lawrence, and to the Mississippi in R1 County, which is pretty amazing.
It is.
So, yeah, and it's just, the hills are so soft, and it's like, it's older mountains than Colorado has. So it feels different. And so one of the things that's really great about it is the fluffiness of the hills is so great because it makes me think about glaze in a different way. Yeah,
Oh,
right. Yeah,
the softness, because you have some very hard edges in the glazing that
yeah,
you apply. Yeah, and yet
right.
there's that modulation. It's really
Yeah,
gorgeous.
but we have a lot of shale here too, which is sort of a wonderful fracturing material.
Ooh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so right.
So
Okay,
you
good.
already kind of talked a little bit about collaborating, but I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit about times you've collaborated with other artists and um, just sort of like what it might have been like for you? And do you see your primary practice as a solo one, or are you somebody who loves to collaborate? I'm curious.
Boy, you really stumped me on that one. I don't know who I collaborate with. I
Well, you just
collaborate.
mentioned Sarah Ransford. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe it's
I
not
collaborate.
formally, but
I don't usually collaborate with like somebody where together we make one piece of art.
okay. Yeah.
I don't do that. I have had probably about 40 people work for me in my studio. And the relationship that I have is really kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Yes, I collaborated with Ron Nagel.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks you, Betsy. Yeah, right. And I collaborated with Betsy too. Yeah, but it's like, no, but I don't, usually I have a bunch of people who I work with in my studio.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a little bit like being part of a jazz group.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
Right.
the one thing that's really what I love about them is the stories they bring me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just kind of like we listen to music and we make pots and yeah, and they tell me really great stories.
Oh, that's
I
good.
love the stories. Oh, I work with Tyler, my butler. Tyler and we I worked with him and I worked with Michael Swain, who was out of University of Washington, but it was always on my work. It wasn't on, we wouldn't do, but what we do is we sit down, we talk about what their possibilities could be. Yeah. And oh,
Yeah.
I've had lots of people I've worked. Yumi Horie,
Mm.
she was fun to work with. And she would tell me all kinds of stories. So that was good.
Well, speaking of jazz, I think of music when I look at your work. It brings that up for me. And I'm curious what music you listen to while you make your work.
Well, music's been really funny. It's like I used to listen to a lot of country western,
Oh, wow.
and now I'm listening to a lot of Broadway tunes,
Nice.
which are really great. And I I'm a countertenor, so I love singing. I'm a soprano. I'm like, I can hit all the high notes. And I was the Swan in Carmina Burana, so it's like there's classical music that I listen to. Um, yeah, I listen to lots of music. I have lots of CDs in the studio. I listen to Chinese music. I love that. I love the way that just go. It's like this really great roller coaster. When we were working at the ranch, Tyler and I listened to Scheherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov. And then what I sort of do what Brancusi did. Brancusi put about 3 records on 3 different phonographs and then put them all through the same speaker. So, that would be kind of this wonderful sort of abstract thing to have happen. And yeah, so it's a nice way of playing with things. Music's really great. One thing that's really great about music is the instrumentals do one thing, words do a different things. And I love the words, I love the stories. Scheherazade's such a great thing because it comes in and you have that great villain at the, dum, 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 ba-da-dum. And then all of a sudden, you have this really great violin that keeps on telling a story in a different way, in a different way, in a different way. And so I love I can keep on telling stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. That makes sense. That's interesting. It helps me kind of imagine the way that you work.
Yeah.
And you have all these hard edges, and then you have these very kind of fluid, undulating forms and shapes coming through your work. And I find that really interesting. Is there anything you can say about your use of color as far as like I know it's affected by place and light and all of that, but you have such bold, you use a lot of primary colors, but you also go in with all these tertiaries and these beautiful sort of mauves and browns and creams. And I'm just wondering, like, um, how you make those decisions, or if that's something that happens more intuitively for you, or if you would be the type of person to teach a color class, that type of thing.
Oh, I've taught color classes, but I might not be the one who should teach it.
Why
Um,
not?
because my color theory is this: is that all colors go together, some work harder. And I think that that's really sort of an amazing situation.
Yeah.
And so, and then the other thing is, I remember I was in Aspen the day that the last election happened, not this one, but the last one. And
Yeah.
everyone was at the ranch. And they're sort of upset what was going on.
Mhm.
And I said, at that point there, this is a point where we have to use color theory. And color theory is really kind of amazing because whatever we're given as a color is hue.
Right.
And our job is to give it value and intensity. So I went through the last 4 years with that as my mantra.
Yeah.
Whatever color they give us is the hue. And as artists, we have to give it value and intensity. Funny way to take an election in, huh?
Yeah, I know. I remember that day too. I was at the ranch as well, and that was a very yeah,
Emotional day. Yeah.
very emotional. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a whole crew of residents there that day as well. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember that. Well, I also wanted to hear, as we're talking, you had mentioned this really exciting group show at the Met that you're going to be a part of, that's ceramic work. And I was wondering if you could tell us about that show and when it's going to happen. And you talked about a publication. We'd all love to hear about that.
Well, the show is it's Ellison's collection, Robert Ellison's collection, and he is the person that has the pottery collection that's in the American wing, that is all the historical stuff, like the early arts and Art Nouveau, that type of stuff. And he's a really great scholar of historical ceramics. And what he did is he had this historical one, and the Met took that. But during my whole career as an artist, he's been collecting other artists that have been our age, my age,
Okay.
instead of the historical ones. The collection has some great pieces in it, like Kenny Price. It has Chris Guston, Zimmerman,
Mm.
just all kinds. It's just a wonderful group of people. It has, what I love about it is it has lots of focus. It has Betty Woodman, it has lots of different people putting everything together.
Yeah.
What I feel about it is I love that people have been able to make art at the same time that I've been able to make art. And it's really great that this person has a really great collection trying to show it off. There's a catalog that will be coming out in March.
Okay.
And the show will open probably early previews at the end of February.
Oh, great. So
And
soon.
so, huh? It's real soon. Yeah, it's real soon. So, and it's such a generous gift to just kind of like make sure that this information is out there and then shared. And it's really nice that it's sort of a contemporary thing because it gives the Met somebody who had a really good eye kind of collecting things. So it's good.
Oh, that sounds really exciting
Yeah.
and interesting. And I love the way you describe, that you're sort of in conversation with all of these artists at the same time. It's
And
really cool.
they've all done really great things. I remember doing a workshop for Chris Guston when Kenny Price was living at his house in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and I was doing these pots that were just like moving around in form, and Chris Guston went. I think he probably went home and showed Kenny what he was doing, and it's like that language just jumps. We learned from each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like such a great way to learn, and so and I just think that there's been all kinds of great covers that have gone on in our industry, and
Mm-hmm.
people kind of like just jump from one thing to another, and it's really kind of great.
That's really
So we've had great teachers. We had great teachers who taught who learned what they could do with the material during a time when uh, ceramics was almost like a wood shop or a home economics class.
yeah.
It was such a strange thing. It's like, and now it's like, now people are trying to really do something with it, and
Yeah.
it's really exciting.
It's a really exciting time for ceramics, or for all media, but for ceramics in particular. I've noticed at the ranch, we're a place where artists tend to come in and move out of their usual medium and go and try something new. And ceramics and printmaking right now seem to be the popular areas to experiment and to push forward. And I think it's really exciting to see somebody, maybe a photographer, try to make something in ceramics, or someone, a printmaker, go over to ceramics and do something interesting with surface. And that's always really intriguing and interesting to me. And I'm sure that I always learn from watching somebody in another medium come over and try something in the medium that I'm well versed in. Yeah.
Well, I think that the way that what's going on at the ranch right now with that new wood shop that they have that's doing the 3D, all that 3D modeling stuff is going to be so great. I think what's happened, just the language that's jumping across is so wonderful. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, you have
They probably have lots of questions.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say you have so many questions, so I'm gonna get started on that, John. And the first one is from Holly Hughes, who I know you know.
Oh, I love Holly Hughes.
And she asks, what would it be like to create a building, a big one, based on your approach to the form, structure, relationship, and color in your ceramic pieces? And have you ever designed clothing?
Oh, well, my daughter designs clothing, and so she's a fashion designer. So, but I do love clothing. Yeah, clothing would be a great thing. Yeah, but the building that I wish I could have had designed would be probably a Gaudi building, because I love how flexible they are, and so that would be that. And I think that he was such a flexible architect. Or the other one that I would really have liked would be maybe something like a golf building, those Bruce golf buildings that are the mansions that are made out of Quonset huts.
Oh yeah.
And I love Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh.
And I love Frank Gehry. I think for Frank Gehry, it's like just really great. You take a wadded up piece of paper and see what you come up with.
So true. That's so great. You have another question from Michael Chandler. He's asking, do you feel like a chess master that's playing 20 players simultaneously when you're making your work? Would that be an analogy for you for what it's like?
No, I can't do that, because what you do is, at the moment, you have to be with the object that you're dealing with, and not on all 20 chessboards.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But you could like say, well, here's a few possibilities that things might have, You know, so you can make lots of different lumber and see how things go together. Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
Cynthia Ruggiero asks if you ever use the golden ratio when designing your pieces.
Maybe accidentally, but not on purpose. Oh, you know what I do is I sometimes I use wrong measurements and see what they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
So Seth Nagelberg asks, thank you for talking about music. In terms of your work, can you talk about mastery and can you talk about improvisation? That might be a tough one. I don't know.
I think that mastery is a very interesting thing because in some ways the work's really dumb. And to master dumbness is really hard. I mean, it's like one of those things that you kind of like go, you when you're young, you're going through it and it's like really kind of like easy. Like you have a little kid and it's like learning how to talk right now. It's like, it's babble, babble, gurgle, gurgle. Well,
Right.
that kid right now is an absolute genius.
Right.
And yet, well, that kid can't speak yet. They're dumb. And so, but why was it a genius when it first started speaking like that? And later on, it's not. And
Yeah.
so you have this really great thing to kind of like just say, well, what is mastery? And
Yeah.
why would, and why would I want to master something? I want to kind of like say, here's this thing. It's like, just, I want to like play with it the way it is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah. What was the rest of his question?
He asked about improvisation.
Oh, I love improvisation. That's really good. That's very important. Yes. Yeah. And I think pretend is really nice. And I think that conjuring is really important. I mean, everybody out there should have a book of lies. A book of lies, things that like you think are absolute lies, that like man could fly was one time in the book of lies. And so, but then somebody, they look at these book of lies and they kind of say, oh, this is possible. Yeah. And so, and then you just conjure up something and then, oh, all right, man's flying. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. So Louise, who is
I like Louise, yes.
I like Louise too. She's awesome. She asks, when you are glazing, the colors don't look like how they will after firing. Does that make it harder to glaze or imagine your final composition, or is that something that you enjoy working with?
Well, if you're aleatory, it doesn't matter. Because everything's a gamble and everything's right. So it's like a little bit like John Cage. So it's like the way it comes out is the way it comes out. We had a person who was at Alfred who was a friend of Kenny Price's. His name was John Wood. And he put this beautiful iron wash on the outside of the cup and he put, it was a nice little cup. It had, only it was on the outside. And he put LP matte on the whole thing, got it in the kiln. And Dan Rhodes, who was like the teacher there, was there when he unloaded the thing. The whole outside was rough because the iron had bled through the stuff and made it kind of like flaky. And Dan Rhodes said, wow, you really messed that one up. And John Wood says, I like it. And I think that a lot of people, when they see what they get out, they say, oh, this has a possibility. And as opposed to going in there and says, you will be this color. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to say, you're going to come out the way that you're going to come out.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be great.
Well, that's refreshing. I like to hear that answer. You have a question from Betsy Chafin. She asks, do you find yourself going back and visiting your early work for inspiration, and how do you see your work kind of in a timeline?
Mm, I guess somebody left their heart in San Francisco and keeps on singing the song. And every time that person sings a song, I think he's trying to see if he can find his heart in San Francisco. And I think that like when you hear like somebody like a Tony Bennett, when you hear somebody like a Frank Sinatra, and just kind of like say, well, this is that moment. And you get to play with it. And, when you sort of have written the rules for something, it's fun to go back and play with it and see what you can come up with. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so a couple of people are asking this question. Howard Freeman, Michael Jones, they're asking you to tell us about your shirt.
Oh, my shirt.
Yes.
Well, this shirt was made for my daughter's wedding, and it had a transparent suit coat that went on top of it.
Oh my goodness. That sounds incredible.
Yeah. Oh, I have to plug in my battery.
That's okay. You're still with us. That's a good thing.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't know how much power I have. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah. So I don't know. I'm on my cell phone. So, well, I'll figure it out later on.
That's okay. And if we lose you, I'll just wrap it up. We're almost to the end anyway. And you've
okay.
Been
Yeah, it was. I had it made in China, and it has all different color buttons. And yeah, I love it. And it reminds me of Tang Dynasty glazes that basically came from Tang Dynasty silk. And it's really great. And they just measure me and then they make it for me. It's great.
That's really cool. Someone asked, have you had any recent or fun experiments? This is from Teresa Booth Brown. Have you had any recent or fun experiments with food, possibly with bacon?
With bacon? The problem is my butler made me a vegetarian.
Oh, well,
yeah,
that's healthy.
Tyler put me on a vegetarian diet, and so like now I've like cut that stuff out. Yeah, but I do. Yeah, but the best thing I ever made was homemade pancetta out of lamb. That was really good. Yeah, right.
So you must miss that a little bit, but
No. I'm fine. I'm fine because we're getting these really great vegetarian dishes that I really like.
Oh, good. Well, that's great. We're glad. That sounds
right. Yeah.
Sounds healthy. Well, John, I know you're running out of power. You were saying, and
oh, I'm not running out of power. I'm just running. We're running out of time, probably.
Well, I mean, your battery was running. I just want to make sure you're good with that. But I was gonna wrap it up, but I wanted to thank you for your generosity and for sharing with us a bit about you and your work. And it's just been lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, and it's really great. And I really had a good time talking with you too. We both went to the same school.
We did. We went to Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle.
Yes, but it was Cornish School of Allied Arts.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Yes, because it was like you had everything, like the 7 lively arts were together in a consortium. Okay. And it was a non-degree art school.
Oh, that's different.
5 days a week, like 8 hours a day, only art.
That's cool. And you were saying it was Morris Graves and Mark Tobey and
they were there before me.
Merce Cunningham.
Those folks. All those people. Yeah. Yeah, it was all these really great people. Right. It was wonderful. So anyhow, I have to go pick the next year's graduate class right now.
Okay, well, thank you. It was very special to talk to you, and everybody's so lucky to get the chance to hear from you today. And I just want to make one announcement. I want to make sure everybody takes a look at our summer workshops that are up now on our website. And also we have a new group of residents who just arrived today from Oolite in Miami. They're a little chilly at the moment, but they'll be presenting their works this Thursday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. So be sure to join us and check out their work. Keep your eyes open for an upcoming virtual events on our website. And I just want to thank everybody. And thank you, especially John, and we'll sign out. Good night.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Later.